Robert Jenrick is back on the airwaves, and he's worse than ever. In attempting to once again defend Nigel Farage, he's managed to outdo his last performances.
We've had parts of the media, Sky News, banging on the door of Nigel's daughter's house, someone who has obviously nothing to do with public life. Enough is enough. Nigel is sick of the way that the old political establishment and their media friends are treating him, because ultimately they are treating the British public with contempt, because they don't want the change that Nigel represents to happen. Let me just pick up on your comment about Sky, because it's just important that our viewers know what's going on. We have a statement from Sky News which says Nigel Farage has legitimate questions to answer about the gift that he accepted from Mr Cotterill. Given the clear public interest in this matter, we've been seeking a response from Mr Farage. He's not engaged with these questions. Therefore, we've made reasonable and proportionate efforts to seek a response from him. Sky News approached a property off camera as part of a broadcast pool operation linked to Mr Farage in an effort to obtain a response from him. This is a well-established news-gathering practice when seeking comment from individuals at the centre of matters of legitimate public interest. We can't comment on the activities of others in the broadcast pool, we should say. We approached the property off camera, knocked on the door. The individual who answered was an adult, and we have established that this was not Mr Farage's daughter. We identified ourselves. The occupant chose not to engage. So that is the statement that I'm able to give you from Sky News. Why did you knock on the door of Nigel Farage's daughter's house? What possible public interest was served by that? I take you to the doorstep.
Well, I can tell you for a fact it's happened to me.
Did you enjoy that experience?
My children have been doorstepped.
Did you enjoy that?
I didn't enjoy it, but I don't protest about it. I think it's perfectly legitimate for journalists to make inquiries.
Adam, so here we are. You're saying that it's perfectly legitimate for Sky News to hound the daughter of Nigel Farage.
No,
oh my goodness.
Hang on, wait a minute.
What planet
we're not talking about hounding, and we're not talking about banging on the door. Both of which are distortions of the truth.
Let me make my point.
I think it is perfect. No. Before you make false assertions about what happened.
Nothing I've said is false.
I think that
it was Sky News.
You're asking
Sky News initially denied this when it was 100% true.
I am saying that journalists.
How can anyone trust this channel when you lied about it?
Journalists are entirely entitled to make inquiries. It's not against the law.
Kids?
It is not against the law. How old is Nigel Farage's daughter? I don't think she's a kid.
Of their children, he's trying to hound Nigel Farage try to get him to leave public life by putting pressure on his family. Well, it's not going to work.
No one's putting pressure on his family. No one is putting pressure on Nigel Farage's family. It is perfectly legitimate for...
And tired old journalists like you, Adam, who have been part of that consensus for my whole life, are going to have to realise that the public are sick of this.
Listen, hang on a second. Hang on. It is perfectly legitimate for newspapers and broadcasters to try to establish whether a man who wants to be Prime Minister owns 5 houses or not. I think that's legitimate. A very simple question for you. If you disrespect the House of Commons, if you think it's just full of the old establishment parties who are going out, then why is Nigel Farage bothering to become an MP?
Because he wants to lead this country and turn it around. Well, that's why.
In other words, by being
who've been part of the consensus,
hang on, wait a minute. In other words, Nigel Farage wants to lead this country. So you're saying by being elected to Parliament, he acquires legitimacy. Right. I'm saying to you that anyone who's elected to Parliament has legitimacy.
You and your old your Labour cronies. You're finished after the next general election.
Okay. You and your Labour cronies, you're finished. You're finished. He's so childish, isn't he? He's such he just moans so much, he really grates on you. The thing is though, what frustrates me is that the mainstream media journalists, to try and be impartial, they don't really bite back, but I want to see more of a stern defence, because Robert Jenrick is just talking out of his arse, quite frankly. And it's crazy the way that they're trying to frame this. Oh, Nigel Farage's daughter's like a little girl. She's a fucking adult, okay? But they keep saying, she's a child. But also, I mean, we're going to show the footage in a minute, but they didn't hound her. They literally just knocked on the door and were like, can we speak to Farage? Someone's like, no. And they're like, okay, bye. That's literally it. But the woke right strikes again, because they're such snowflakes. They call everyone else a snowflake, but here they are crying because the journalists did their job. Wild. Let's have a look at another clip.
We'll look at this and say, well, this is just Nigel Farage trying to dodge an inquiry which he can feel was going the wrong way for him.
Look, Nigel was very clear that he has broken no rules. He's done
He's not the arbiter of that. That's not how it works.
He's done absolutely nothing wrong. But
he doesn't sit in judgment. If
the people sit in judgment.
Well,
the people
actually,
sit in judgment.
there are rules about how an MP
actually,
behaves.
We're a democracy. Or at least we in Reform believe it. You might not think that if you look at the other parties.
Well, it sounds very Trumpian, because Donald Trump would say, the fact that voters vote for me, that trumps everything else.
Look what the Labour Party is doing. They've announced they're going to change the law so that British citizens cannot give donations to Reform.
You've changed subject there. I was asking about the rules that govern the behaviour of an MP.
Illegally cancelling the election of 5 million people. You've got the leader of the Conservative Party likening Nigel Farage to Jeremy Thorpe, a man who stood trial for incitement for murder.
You're jumping around with different subjects
there. You've got parts of the media banging on the door of Nigel's own daughter's house, someone who's got nothing to do with public life.
You're jumping lots of subjects there. Does
Nigel
all the
same story.
Is it?
We ultimately
Sky News knocking on someone's door is the same as whether an MP should accept the rules of Parliament. That's quite a jumble.
The establishment are trying to play judge and jury and executioner. Well, enough of that.
Again, I'm getting really frustrated that so many presenters and journalists are letting him just speak his waffle. Damn, I wish I could be matched up with Jenrick right now. I'd fucking tear him to pieces. I would. Because I said, look, I have a problem with the corporate media. There is massive issues with corporate media. But guess what? Nigel Farage met with Steve Bannon in 2017, and he tried setting up a meeting between Bannon and Frederick Barclay, one of the co-owners of The Telegraph. The idea that, like, the media are against reform, they're all in the fucking revolving door of the actual establishment. But it just comes across as moaning again. Now, it wasn't just Jenrick having a meltdown. Zia Youssef has been acting very odd on social media. All in caps locks. Reform UK has offered to pay in full for the cost of this by-election. It's how politics should be done. He also said this, again all in caps, Sky News should be taken off air for their lies. What is this Trumpian style all caps lock about? I mean, is bro okay? Also, imagine his reaction if any MP who's not from Reform called for GB News to be taken off air. He'd be crying. Right, the woke right will be back again. Given the receipts posted by Nigel Farage, should Sky News formally change its name to Sly News? Again, it's very Trumpian, isn't it? And also, like, I think he thought he did a banger here, and it really wasn't. They're also, by the way, I've heard that Zia Youssef is like kind of a loose cannon in Reform. He's not actually well liked. Of course, he had his little tat with Reform when he resigned for like 2 days. Because over Sarah Poacher and just unilaterally saying Reform would ban the burqa, and Zia Youssef being a Muslim was like, I think that's too far for me. And then 2 days later, he gave up all his principles and went, actually, I don't care about that now. Goes back into Reform. He's obviously not well liked in the party because he revealed on Question Time last week that he's actually tried to stand as a candidate and he hasn't been picked. He hasn't been picked. I can see why. The man is completely unhinged. Helena. Given that people do despise the media in this country, apart from hardcore Reform supporters, what do you think the average person will think of Jenrick's media performances?
I mean, true, we do hate the media in this country. I think we also hate bad manners. People being belligerent, like what Jenrick was, that really doesn't go down well with the prim and proper British people. In my mind, I don't think that is generally going to go down well. But even if it may go down well for Nigel Farage, because sometimes he gets away with it, can it do for Robert Jenrick? Someone as weird and as slimy and as totally repellent as Robert Jenrick? I don't think so. Also worth pointing out, by the way, that the footage that Sky News released, or the footage that Farage released of Sky News going up to the address, didn't show him hounding anybody. They went up and asked if Nigel Farage was there, and the person who was living there refused to engage, and it was an address that Nigel Farage was registered to vote at a previous election. So perfectly reasonable for a journalist to go up there, knock, say hello, get told to fuck off, and then go, right? that isn't actually a problem, which is hilarious. It's absolutely hilarious. The barefaced cheek, again, of people so privileged they've never had to deal with scrutiny in their lives, getting mad about one journalist going to one person's house to ask a question. Do you know whose front door I know like the back of my fucking hand, Curtis? Jeremy Corbyn's. I know Jeremy Corbyn's door like nobody's business, because every single day from 2017 to 2019 there were press camps out there 24/7 going, Jeremy, what about Israel? What about the anti-Semitism in Labour? Right? Every single day in, day out, they were doing that. Did Jeremy Corbyn say this is enough and throw a tantrum and threaten to resign from Parliament due to any of these things? No, of course he didn't, right? Because he's made of stronger stuff than these people. And broadly, not answering the question, trying to deflect, belligerently talking over people. We don't like that stuff in this country, really, do we? We like a nice, quiet, sensible debate. We're not like the Americans. We're better than the Americans. We don't have these CNN-style Fox News panel of everybody shouting over each other. We don't really like... We like to have our very sedate debates done in the right way. And I don't think people are going to be really accepting of what is, again, quite Trumpian language. Remember, Trump's approval rating in the UK is -70. You know, it's as low as Vladimir Putin. You know, people really don't like that style of politics in this country. And outside of, again, as you pointed out, the reform faithful, who will certainly be happily won over by this because it's all part of the game, I don't think that the regular voters will be very happy to see this kind of stuff coming from Robert Jenrick. Again, somebody who is so obviously totally devoid of principle. Again, like, he was somebody who said he was totally committed to the Tory party, to the point at which he stood to be the leader, and didn't get the leadership, realised that Kemi Badenoch was there in the long haul, and then just left it so that he could critique the government that he was a part of as immigration minister on the subject of immigration. The idea that there's anyone out there who has positive words to say about Robert Jenrick, I find it very difficult to believe. I can certainly believe about Farage. I can maybe believe it about like Richard Tyson of Dear Yosef. I definitely cannot believe it about Robert Jenrick.
Well, he doesn't have the source. And I think, look, in order to be that kind of politician, you have to have the source. Nigel Farage has the source. He does. I know we absolutely despise him, but he's very good at playing the media. He's very good with his words. He can do that. And sometimes he does look silly. And I don't know if everyone appreciates it every single interview, but by and large, he gets people on his side. He gets people to say, do you know what? The media are ridiculous. But Jenrick hasn't got the source. He doesn't command the respect. He sounds like he's whining. And I tell you what, no one likes whiners, do they?
Yeah, a whining child, a whining little crying baby. Wow. Yeah. Well, I'm facing basic scrutiny as a politician. Oh, life is so hard. And the weird intonation of his accent. Like, because the thing is, with Nigel Farage, you can tell him when he was talking about people like, going up to his daughter that he was genuinely angry. You could tell that he was angry. Again, it's misplaced anger because, again, he doesn't realise, as somebody who's grown up living in the halls of privilege, that, yeah, once you become a politician, the games are different. You do have to be treated with significantly more scrutiny, and you will get doorstepped in a way that people aren't politicians don't. Jeremy Hunt was talking about this on Sky News the other day too. Like, during the junior doctor strikes, for example, always had press around his door. Yeah. That's life. That's life as a politician, and he clearly was not ready for the level of scrutiny to be placed on him becoming, the potential most powerful person in the country as a future prime minister, which is the polls currently, at time of recording, look like he's going to be, which is why he was genuinely angry. But it's clear to me, from the way in which the Zia Yusuf and Robert Jenrick have been acting, and indeed certain other reform figures are acting that we may or may not be looking at later on in the show, that they've been told by Reform UK, Nigel is angry, you have to look angry too, despite the fact they're not personally slighted. Whereas Nigel's is very, it's sincere, they're putting it on because they have to buy into Nigel Farage's fury here, when of course Robert Jenrick is a long-time politician. He knows what the media is like. He knows that this is actually, real... There's normal political engagement from a journalist with a high-profile politician, so he has to make up the anger that Nigel Farage is feeling sincerely.
Yeah, you can tell that's been the message from the party. So you need to go out and be angry. But again, like, if you can't convey that very well, if you come across as a whiny baby, it doesn't work. To your point about how people in this country don't like overly aggressive people, they don't like the Americanization of debates. One thing, and again, I really despise him, but one person who comes to mind who I think is very good at it is Rupert Lowe, because Rupert Lowe has that quiet confidence. He doesn't actually get overly emotional, that I've seen anyway. And I think
Jacob Rees-Mogg, Douglas Murray, people like that.
What exactly? They're very good examples of someone who can sort of keep the same tone, but also commands that respect because they have that confidence in the way they speak. Like hang on a second, no, this is what's going on, without going overboard. Jenrick hasn't got the source, and he's trying to do it, and it's just really embarrassing.